Dr. Jones. No time for love. We've got company.
Hey, Bambi.
Hey.
You want to know something?
Okay.
I'm famous for grabbing priceless relics and items of important historical significance. But that's not how I pay the bills. I gotta come clean. Truth is, I'm a pool shark. A hustler. Watch me fleece this biker who totally isn't gonna break my brittle bones.
For $100.
So, welcome everyone to No Time for Love, Dr. Jones, where we follow the fictional adventures of Dr. Henry Walton Jones Jr. as he bounces off real-world history and important figures. I am your host, Jamie Chambers, and this is my sister Bambi.
Hello.
If you're listening to our voices now, you are one of our beloved $5 or more subscribers on chainsawhistory.com. Thank you. You make us feel like a lusty Italian opera composer, making us feel what it is to be alive.
I have nothing for that.
I've been listening to a lot of Italians over the last 48 hours.
I'm sure you have.
And I've been to Italy. So
I
we're
know.
Going to talk about today really hit me in the feels.
In the feelings. Okay.
Maybe not the way the episode wanted to, but... So for anyone who wants to follow along with us on our little adventures of the life of Indiana Jones, you can find them on YouTube. There's a channel called Young Indy Restored, at least until the Walt Disney Corporation finds out about it. Even though they don't seem to care enough about Young Indiana Jones, because once again, it's not on Disney Plus. It's like you have to pay money and work at it if you even want to see this shit.
Yeah, well, they're trying to actually, bury it. Because it's kind of terrible.
Yeah, I saw there was apparently there was literally in development, like following this new Indiana Jones movie that's coming out this year. They were going to do a TV series where they were going to recast Indiana Jones and just do a TV show adventures, which personally I have no problem with. But I think they got so spooked by how horrible Solo did for Star Wars at the box office that the idea of recasting Harrison Ford ever again is the Walt Disney Corporation is like, no. And Harrison Ford himself has gone on record as saying he thinks that with him being done, they just need to hang up Indy's hat now and just let it be done. But I don't know. Like I said, we're already talking about all these. We have many Indiana's Jones already. And we're going to be getting into one of them again today, your favorite.
Oh, he is so not my favorite. Although I, at least in this episode, I had a lot of sympathy for Indy.
Yeah,
he's just a kid.
This one's not an adventure. This one's not. Yeah, this was a whole different thing. Today's episode is titled Florence, May 1908. Also known as Your Mom's a Hoe, Bro. It's not really an Indiana Jones who has an adventure this week. The adventure is had by Mrs. Anna Jones.
Oh, yeah. We didn't even know she had a first name until this episode.
Now she gets a whole lot. She gets to enjoy herself some Italian sausage this episode.
Yeah, well, she's married to an abuser.
To a stiff, terrifying, wound-up Scotsman.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Ew.
The fiery Italian man.
So we're going to get to him. Okay, so it's sometime after our fun with child slavery in Morocco. Because, like I said, all the timeline of when they originally intended these to take place and then when they put them out don't match up. So it's kind of bouncing all over the place. So let's just not think too hard about how fast they got from Morocco to Italy. And then they're going to reference going to Paris at the end of this, but that's also not what happens next. So just don't worry about it. So now the Jones family is going to Italy. Dr. Jones Sr. is giving a boring lecture in Rome, and the rest of the family wisely decides to stay in Florence, which happens to be Jamie Chambers' favorite city on planet Earth. I have been there 3 times I could explore Florence for months. And holy shit, in this episode, the photography is gorgeous, and it really takes advantage of how beautiful Tuscany is and how gorgeous Florence is. They go to Pisa for a little bit.
Yeah, the cinematography in this one was also very, very good.
The best thing possible probably about this show, especially, sorry kid, but for the young Indy days. So yeah, it's been 15 years since I've been back to Florence, and I really, really miss it. Especially after watching this. This whole thing gave me just this absolute, just deep nostalgia and longing to go back to Italy. So probably worth noting that while it's only our third episode in the chronological adventures of Indiana Jones, this was the very last episode shot with Corey Carrier playing Little Henry. So this was it for him. This was in his little free trip to Florence was his last stint. And yeah, he only did 7 episodes in total. So we're already like almost halfway through his run. So we don't have to suffer through these episodes much longer.
Like I said, at least in this one, he seemed like a normal kid.
Yeah.
Of all of the episodes so far,
This
this
episode-
is the one where
It didn't ask too much of him as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And so he only did 7, and apparently they had another 7 episodes, like the stories planned and broken out and everything, but those were completely scrapped. I did check. Corey Carrier is now 42 years old, and I found him on Twitter. He stopped acting after playing this part, so I think this is basically it. This episode, it represents the end of his film and television career. And he was like, I guess, around 13 when he actually shot this, maybe a little bit younger. I know he did voiceover. He did some voiceovers and reshoots for the DVDs, so I guess that's not true. But basically, he stopped after being Young Indiana Jones, and this was the last full episode he shot. So anyway, so Corey, on his social media account, he is really into basketball. He is also, and related to that, he's a fellow podcaster. He's apparently part of like a basketball podcast.
okay.
So there you go.
Good for you,
So
dude.
shout out to Corey. We give you shit. We talk crap, but in all seriousness, like, nothing but respect.
I mean,
He got-
he was a kid actor.
yeah, he got paid to go hang out in awesome places and
Yeah.
literally gets to be part of the history of Indiana Jones. So
And as
if
long as nothing terrible happened to him, you
Sure.
know, during his time acting, which apparently that's a problem sometimes.
sometimes don't
But-
know anything about this guy other than that brief little tidbit. So, cool. Good for
Yeah.
you, buddy.
Hope your
and-
your
and-
time was well spent and not horrific.
And it's also weird that he's like just a few years younger than us.
Yeah, no, he's like older than our baby sister.
Older than my wife. All right.
Lots of people are older than your wife.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
In this section, we talk about the plot and major story points of the episode, such as they are. So we begin in a random dive bar in the 1990s.
Yeah, it was the most random thing.
Just jarring. And apparently old Indiana Jones likes to go for, drinking at noon.
And hustling.
Because he's hanging there. He's just hanging out there. And you see this Amazon biker mama is shooting pool.
And being good at it.
Yeah. She beats some random asshole, and you can tell. It looks like her and her boyfriend, who's like this just big, hairy, dumb guy. They're hustling people at the bar, and Indy's just over there drinking. And so he was like, "Any more takers? You all afraid to take on a woman?
It was very cringy.
You
This
old timer!"
whole scene was so cringy.
And when you juxtapose it to the actual like main episode, it just
Doesn't go
it
at
is
all.
jarring. None of it makes any sense. It's so funny. So he's like, "You old timer, how about you?" And he suggests $100 bet just right off the bat. Didn't even try to work him up to it. And old Indy's like all about it. He's like,
Okay.
steep, but a challenge. So they rack up for a game of 9 ball, and then Indy performs a damn near like perfect break and sinks a few balls.
Yeah, and then he runs the table.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, he starts telling this young woman a story.
Yeah. The biker mama asks.
And yeah, and she asks and he starts telling.
Never give old Indy an excuse, because all she asked was literally, can you show me how to do that shot, was kind of what she was really going for. And instead she literally, what she gets is, that comes from a thorough understanding of physics, which of course is all the excuse Indy needs to begin a long-winded story about the time his father was on a world lecture tour and brought his family to Florence.
Yeah. And that's where the story turns.
So it's like, so we're starting with pool hustling in a dive bar, and then we're talking about physics, and then we're going to talk about the story that we're about to get into. So what the fuck? Any of these things have to do with each other. These writers, I hope the drugs were excellent in the writer's
They
room.
had to have been.
Because we just go like, this is just non sequitur shit. So we're gonna go to a very different kind of story. So as he goes, he talks about how his dad's on the lecture tour. They go to Florence. He goes, a city where everyone was in love with someone, or maybe just in love with love.
Extra creepy.
The architecture was breathtaking, built to honor man and God.
Yeah.
That's what he said, and he's not wrong, because like it dissolves over several shots of just like priceless artwork and sculpture, and just the beauty of the buildings. I mean, like I said, Florence, you walk in any random patch of that city, and it is just something that will take your breath away. And they get some really good shots in this show. I'm incredibly biased. So, like, I've been to many of the places that were featured in this episode. Like, I've wandered the streets of Florence. I've been to Pisa. And, yeah, I really want to, like, I should have been drinking a bottle of Chianti.
I want to go.
You really must.
I will eventually.
I haven't done nearly as much.
It's on my list.
I haven't done nearly as much international travel as I would like to do, but I have been to Italy several times. So Old Indy's monologue about the beauty of Italian art just kind of keeps on going for a minute, until we see a statue that I don't recognize, but it shows an angel holding a woman who's like collapsing backwards, and the angel's cupping her breast.
Yep.
And then it pans down to little Indy being quite interested in this image. He's like, some consider me an angel. I mean, he sees a lot of naked artwork for the first time in his life, because he's raised by these two prudes. Like, his mother never shows even much of her neck. Like she wears these high collared shit, and she wears these hats. Like,
well, that was
it was a period appropriate fashion, and especially for a woman, married woman, American middle class theoretically. But like I said, it's like
they are way upper middle class.
But like I said, you think of that, and then you think that that little Henry's first international trip was to all these like very repressive Middle Eastern type places where there's not a lot of female flesh on display, and then suddenly he's just looking at titties everywhere. Little Henry's getting titties in the paintings, titties in the statues.
Yeah, well, and then all the other shit that's going on.
Yes. And now we're going to get to that. So Henry's quite impressed, and he goes, but their most passionate love of all was the opera. And there we get to what we're going to be getting into. So we see the Jones family going up the stairs of the opera house, and a rich old Italian lady, well, actually the rich old Italian host, he's saying that the Jones family must stay as guests at their mansion.
And she was like, no, I want my own space. And
they're like,
lady
no, we
wouldn't
insist.
Yeah, they were like, we will not take no for an answer. And
there's a lot of that in this episode.
So much of that.
Even though I will say, having spent a lot of time with Italians, that is not inaccurate. They are very emotional, and they're very sort of pushy with their emotions and what they want, but that is done with love and generosity. You just have to kind of get used to this. Boundaries don't exist so much for Italians, like the way they do for Americans, especially. There are just some key cultural differences.
Yeah, well, and I mean, especially in this time period.
I don't see it having changed much, having
yeah, but
been
at
there.
least people have changed. Society has changed.
Bit, yeah.
This little button-up bitch had no fucking idea.
So the old lady, teaches Henry to say, my first opera, in Italian, la mia prima opera. And then we cut to box seats where the Joneses and Ms. Seymour are watching La Boheme. And so we're watching sort of reaction shots to the music. And by the way, not only lots of scenes of the opera themselves, but most of the score of this episode is actually from Puccini operas. Like, there's very little original score. They just kind of pull and kind of remix some of Puccini's greatest hits to be the background of this whole story. So we're seeing all these reaction shots to the music, and you see Anna, Mrs. Jones, and she's like deeply moved, like to tears. She holds her husband's hand and is feeling super romantic, as things are going on. And we see Dr. Jones looks completely like stone faced. He's got
he literally gives no fucks.
Mount Rushmore look in his face. It's like, oh yes, the opera. And
he like handed her a tissue or a handkerchief or whatever, and was like, meh.
Wipe away your lady tears. And then you see, and little Henry closes his eyes slowly, and I'm honestly not sure whether the show is trying to tell us he was like his mother, or he's just like falling asleep because he's bored. He's this hyperactive little ADHD kid, and now they're like, it's a fucking opera.
It could have been a little bit of A, a little bit of column B. He's enjoying the music, but he's also lulled.
I think they're trying to tell us that he was deeply moved, but
It didn't come across that way.
He was on Prozac. And then we see the conductor, who's this swarthy, mustachioed Italian with big, expressive, dark eyes. And by the way, spoiler alert, that's Puccini. That is our historical figure of the day. And I will say they got a guy who looks quite a bit like the photographs of Puccini.
Okay.
Yeah, looked like the dude, and probably, probably acted quite a bit like the dude too, at least in terms of like how Puccini is known. So Henry asks this week's leading question while they're in the middle of the opera. He goes, "Mother, do people really fall in love that quick?" And what is your reaction to that question?
Yeah, ish.
Henry is correctly told to shut the fuck up when a
pretty
theater
much.
performance is going on. The music and the singing swell, and we see the conductor is just as swept up in the emotion as the audience. Anna Jones cries at the tragic death of Mimi on stage at the end of La Boheme. The theater erupts in applause, and the handsome conductor takes a bow. So backstage, the rich Italian lady is trying to talk the conductor into going out to party with them. But he's got like a cold rag over his eyes. He's like, "No, I am too tired." And he like, the weird part of this part there is like, there are two Italians speaking to each other in Italy.
In English.
But they're speaking in English with thick Italian accents instead, which they don't do through the rest of the episode. Like, there's plenty of times they speak in Italian, but it's awkwardly written in this scene. Like, he has his eyes covered. Why would he even know to speak English? No, anyway, it's stupid. It's called bad writing. But
yeah, he slowly he takes the cloth off his eyes, and then he sees Mrs. Jones. And then all of a sudden, he is super up to party.
Mrs. Jones and me.
That was terrible. You should be ashamed.
I'm ashamed for all of this. Yeah, so the old lady is like, "Your excuse is unacceptable, maestro. Allow me to introduce Mrs. Anna Jones of New Jersey, America." And that's when, like you said, he had this moment, and literally all his vision is just filled with this
lovely blonde woman.
face completely draped head to toe in cloth. And, it's like, to their credit, like they didn't cast like a supermodel, beautiful woman to be Anna Jones. She's pretty.
She's very
pretty, and she's this very sort of very soft woman. As soft is the perfect word for her. Her voice is soft. Everything about her is soft.
Yeah, she's like a flower petal.
And it's like, you think of that, and then you think of this stuffy academic, and then realize that these are the parents of one of the most grizzled, hard-ass people ever to hit the screen. It's so weird. So yes.
But you can see, I mean, at least in that frame, you can see where he
he opens up
what
his eyes,
he
he
does.
sees this beautiful, he sees Mrs. Anna Jones, and sparroing, he is no longer tired. You could call Mr. Puccini horned up.
Yeah, he was down after that.
He was like, "Oh, you want to go out and drink and smoke and cavort with a 9-year-old? Let us do this."
Yeah, he had no fucking problems, like, being right around little Henry Jones.
So they go out to some bar where it looks like a lot of the performers are drinking, and they're all hanging out and drinking a bunch of Chianti. And this is, probably 2:00 in the morning. And Henry asked the dude who's been checking out his mom all night. He's like, "Did you write that opera?" "Yes." This, of course, is Giacomo Puccini. And Henry's like, "Yeah, your opera made my mom cry." And
yeah, he took his little Henry and he was like, "You're my wingman now, dude."
He's like, "You're gonna help me." So I want to tap.
I want to tap your mom. That's so wrong.
So we get a long shot of Anna Jones like staring at the Italian musician, and she might as well have been like biting her lip and crossing and uncrossing her legs. Like, both these people are so horny.
Yeah, except for she was
very horny episode.
To her credit, though, she was trying to get her husband to be horny for her.
Yeah.
And he was not having it.
Nope.
He gave no fucks.
He is a fucking just stiff ass board. So yes, she confesses that
Was he even at the party?
yeah,
I
man,
don't.
he was there.
I think.
He
Yeah.
was
Oh
there,
yeah, he did.
He was,
He
there,
had a.
he was sitting ramrod straight and sipping
That's
his wine.
right, because he came over and threw his arm around him.
Mm-hmm. No, because Puccini was like just
going
buttering up
around.
the whole family. And
He's like, I shall take care of your wife for you while you are gone.
yeah, we're about to get to that. So yeah, she confesses that the music did indeed make her cry. And Puccini says, then you understand great love. So little Henry helpfully explains to the horny composer that they're going to be in Florence for the whole week while his dad is totally gone, because dad's giving another boring lecture in Rome. That is a wise choice, Puccini declares. He's like, and the whole time he is pouring everybody just massive glasses of Chianti. Well, like even when they object, but once again, Italians do not give a shit about your objections, your personal boundaries, and he's like, nope, I'm getting everybody drunk tonight. So he's like, that is a wise choice. Florence breathes art and culture. Rome sweats trying to keep up. Which is another very Italian thing to do, which is to shit on the other neighboring Italian cities.
Okay.
Like, for example, like Puccini even mentions in this episode, he's from the town of Lucca, which is the Italian town I've spent the most time in my life. And
I thought about you when they said that.
The
I was
people
like,
of
Jamie's
Lucca-
been to Lucca.
the people of Lucca talk more shit about the people from Pisa, which is 20 miles away, more than anything else in the world. It is so funny that like there's certain like Italian things. So like Puccini getting a dig on Rome is very on brand. And I've been to both Rome and Florence, and I agree with him. Fuck Rome in comparison. Like you should go, but if you have to choose, Florence is so much better. And Anna is just staring at Puccini's like he's a very spicy meatball.
But then she looks at her husband. She
She's like,
does.
Please show some personality
Yes.
or anything.
Please love me.
So Henry explains he'll be spending his week learning the laws of physics, which is supposed to explain why in 84 years he associates playing pool with this trip to Italy where his mother got her groove back.
It's really rough.
So Puccini works on getting Ms. Seymour drunk and suggestible too. So he like pours her more wine. He goes, Miss Seymour, in Italy, too much is barely enough. You're in my country. You must let me show you the way. So he insists on escorting the family to Pisa the next day so that Henry can perform physics experiments.
Oh, yeah. He's like, I'll take care of your wife for you while you're gone.
Yes, he specifically says, because I wrote this down, the exact quote, Professor Jones, I'm offering my services to your family. I'm the happy owner of a touring motor car. I would gladly show them to Pisa tomorrow. A guided tour.
Okay. And again, he seemed to up and up, except for he's
Except
not.
his intentions are not honorable. Not even a little bit. So he's literally got his arm around this dude. He's like, I'm going to fuck your wife. And hopefully steal her away from you. And your son. Because I'm a great man. And so he says that he's not busy tomorrow because he's searching for inspiration for his next opera.
This is such a weird episode.
Yeah, it is.
I can't express that enough. How fucking weird this episode.
Yeah, and this is maybe our one time where Indy's mom is the main character. Because she is the main character of this story.
Although I did find it funny that in this episode they had more fun as a family because
Dr.
Jones was not there.
Yeah,
Everyone seemed to be having a super grand time because they were like, Dad's not here.
We don't have to worry about him beating us tonight. So yeah,
The whole mood of this episode is so much lighter than the other one.
Except, yeah. So back at the rich Italian mansion, Miss Seymour is ruthlessly attending to Henry's physics lessons, ordering him to write down everything she says and repeat it. And you see Anna literally, because they're setting up, they've got this whole like suite with its own sitting room and everything in the mansion. And so she literally like puts a picture of her and her husband up and caresses it lovingly, like as if she's trying to remind herself that I'm a married woman. I shouldn't be masturbating to fantasies about an Italian's mustache tickling my thighs.
Oh, that's so wrong.
She's feeling a little guilty. So she's like, yes, I am married.
Please stop. I will do anything if you stop. So gross.
Anna gets her husband out the door. He's like running late for his cab, and she presses a flower into his book because she's so fucking sweet.
She is. This woman's just a soft little flower petal of a creature.
Yeah.
She just wants to be loved. Poor thing.
They kiss goodbye, and then Dr. Jones, Junior, take good care of your mother. And he doesn't say it, but he's like, don't worry, Dad. I think Mr. Puccini is going to take real good care of Mom.
But yeah, she was like packing his stuff and being the lovely wife.
And this is the one time he doesn't drag her along to like attend to him and to make sure he didn't like because he doesn't seem to be able to tie his own shoelaces most of the time.
Yeah, how did he give up his right arm?
You get, at least for the moment, the understanding of why Henry didn't have any respect for his dad until he was like in his 30s and his dad was old. So anyway, the writers keep trying to make the physics lessons and the romantic storylines like complementary. So they try to have lines of the physics lessons sort of thematically go with what's going on in the romantic storyline, but it's very ham-fisted and very bad.
It was not well done at all.
Needed a few extra drafts before they went to shooting this one, but they spent all their money on the beautiful location shooting instead of a better team of writers. The moment Dr. Jones is in a cab, Henry is writing down, "The farther an object is away, the harder it is for the force to affect them." And now that Dr. Jones is going away, his influence on his wife also goes away. And suddenly she starts being quite as well behaved. So we get a lingering shot of Anna trying on various oversized hats. Like, which of these 3 hats is the perfect hat for today? And she finally goes with one that's like covered in blue ribbons, and she sticks in this hat pin that could easily be a murder weapon.
Well, I mean, that is how you wore hats.
Yeah.
You had big hair.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise your hat's going to fly off when you're driving a car down a dirt road.
And these women had long hair that they pinned up.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure when you took that down, it was like down to past her thighs. Mm-hmm. But we never see that, at least not even in this episode. You never really get to see her with her hair down.
Yeah, no, she was buttoned up the whole time.
So yeah, we got Puccini driving like a maniac down an Italian dirt road with Miss Seymour, Anna, and little Henry.
But they were all so happy for like the first time.
They're having an absolute fucking blast. They're riding down the car. Puccini's like swerving down and laughing like a fucking lunatic, and they're like, not only do seatbelts not even exist yet.
Yeah, Henry's just standing up.
Henry's standing in the car. They're swaying back and forth. We're all going to
This
die.
is great. He's holding onto his neck like they're riding a horse.
Like this would be such a crime in the modern world. But it's like, oh.
He covered his eyes at one point.
Yeah, he's like, Mamma Mia. Literally says that. And then he's like, Henry, who do you think of first thought of the self-propelled car? And Henry gives the very American answer.
Henry Ford.
Fuck Henry Ford! It was Leonardo da Vinci in the 1500s. And he's like, because he, of course, Italians, also very on brand, how fucking proud of being Italian they are. So he talks about, he's like, Italians are dreamers. They are innovators because they are dreamers. They take the time to dream the impossible. And they sing. And then he starts singing Take Me Out to the Ball Game to patronize his American friends.
And they fell for it hook, line, and sinker
even
while they all gloriously sing.
Yeah, even Miss Seymour is about to take me out to the ball game.
Hey, you know what? Mrs. Seymour actually, like, she's shown in this episode too.
Honestly, Miss Seymour grows on you in this episode because she seems like such a prissy old bitch, but she shows a lot of humanity and empathy in this episode.
And you know, and it's like she's like a stiff kind of school matron, but at the same time she starts to loosen the fuck up.
Well, she's been traveling with his family now for you know, at least 6-7 months. So, and she's already known Dr. Jones since he was a kid.
Yeah, and this is the episode Henry learns a third language.
Yeah, we already saw him getting his first little Italian lessons at the very beginning at the opera. So yeah, we get gorgeous establishing shots of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and you see Henry splashing his mother's dress in muddy puddles like Peppa fucking Pig. But unlike Dr. Jones Sr., who would have been furious, she's like, "Oh, Henry, you little scamp."
Oh, stop it.
And so then hyperactive Henry's running up and down the tower stairs while Miss Seymour shuffles her dry old bones up to the top. Like, she seems to have slowed down a little bit from when we saw her, like, just flying up the pyramids.
Yeah.
But, it's been a few months and her arthritis might be kicking in.
Well, and also she was drinking too much last night.
Yeah, so she's hungover as fuck, and she's like, oh, God, I gotta climb these stairs. This kid who's literally running around because he's like this ball of manic energy.
So they can do the most fucking stupidly dangerous thing I can think of.
So, in addition to history, we get some science class today, kids. Miss Seymour takes out 2 irons, one that is much bigger and heavier than the other, and Henry makes the erroneous assumption that if they drop them both at the same time, the heavier one will land first. That's what Aristotle taught, explains Miss Seymour, but Galileo thought otherwise. So then they recreate Galileo's famous experiment where he drops off, uses the leaning tower to make it easy to drop, even though he flings them, which makes it not as useful.
Yeah.
You're supposed to drop them exactly
at
the same time, point, whatever.
No, but he just fucking flings
Because
them. I'm surprised that he didn't hit someone.
No, yeah, he nearly kills his mother and her new boyfriend.
Yeah, and they were like only a little, like a few feet away, and they were like, "Oh, look, it landed at the same time! Hooray!"
Yep. So they learn that objects of the same density fall at the same rate, regardless of their total mass. So yay physics, and that's why.
And that's why he can shoot some fucking pool.
So Puccini and Anna get to know each other better, and we learn she's from Virginia. So we actually get an actual detail about this woman.
Not New Jersey.
Yeah, and Puccini. That's when he tells that he grew up in Lucca, which was only 20 miles away from where they at in Pisa. And he said that he had walked to Pisa as a young man to see his first opera, which inspired his career choice for life. And his father had died when he was 5, and his mother had sacrificed for his music lessons. But then she died before he became successful. So, and then he gives one hell of a quote. An artist is a man who looks at beauty through a pair of looking glasses, which, as he breathes, becomes clouded over. He takes off his handkerchief and cleans his glasses. He sees clearly again, but with the first breath, the absolute beauty is failed again. It is only the approximation that which we can create. Art is elusive. It is not like the beauty of a woman, unquote. And he's like staring at her like he could just make her dress explode off her body while he gives this like deep ass quote about art.
And she just drank it up.
Oh, she might be a little moist at this point.
Ew. Stop with the sex references. It's so gross. Yeah.
But don't worry, little Captain C Block saves the day and interrupts their moment.
Oh yeah, he is definitely Mr. Cockblock in this episode. I mean, for reals.
Yeah, which, in this case, fair enough. That is his
that's his fucking mom. Get your fucking hands off my mom, you creepy fuck.
Even though at this point Henry doesn't know that Puccini's up to no good. He's still
at this point, neither does Miss Seymour.
Yeah.
They're both like, okay, it's been a great day.
And so far at the moment, we're still okay.
Yeah, we're looking at some more
All
art.
we're seeing is the longing looks.
And is this where they saw the statue of David? Because
no,
that was at the beginning.
That's back in Florence. No, they see it later, but it's back in Florence because I know that exactly what that said. That's not the actual David, but there is a recreation that was done and set out right in front of the museum. I've seen that exact statue in person myself. But anyway, but at the moment they're still in Pisa. And like I said, so far, we're just seeing these looks like, okay, these people are into each other, but they're all behaving. It's just a nice day. And then Puccini whines that his wife is a total bitch and that conflict just ruined his ability to create music. So now they keep their distance from each other, and his adult son tries to keep the peace between the estranged couple. So now we cut back to the mansion in Florence, and Henry is getting yet another physics lesson when all of the flowers in Florence arrive.
And that's what she said. She was like, "These are for you."
She's like, and then she's like, who's sent them? She's
from?
like, card. And it's funny, as the flowers arrive, suddenly Miss Seymour. Oh wait, suddenly Seymour.
You should be ashamed of that too.
She springs up out of her seat, like her spidey sense suddenly hits for the first time. She's like, something's up. You do not send that amount of flowers.
Yeah, it was a big display.
And
it's a big display.
And the card reads, "To my beautiful Signora Anna, from your admirer, Puccini."
So mom quickly lies and says, "They're for everyone."
She sure does. She's like, she does not want everybody hipped that he just bought I mean, that would be ridiculous even if she was single.
An obscene amount of flowers.
But again, it is the Italian way to over fucking do it.
Yeah, giving no fucks that this woman has a family. Her son's right there.
And like, yes, like
right
you said,
there. He was trying to use him as, a little wingman, but ends up being his
doesn't work out.
No.
But when Anna did the
He's
lie,
a doorstop.
when Anna made the lie that it was all for all of them, like you just said, Miss Seymour is like, "How very Italian." Next, we cut to Puccini at an opera rehearsal, just screaming at the actress on stage. Yeah, I was like, "Give me passion, give me love. You know nothing of suffering, but you will." And like the woman has she's dressed as a geisha, so you see this is Madame Butterfly. This is Madame Butterfly.
The one and only opera I think I know anything about.
I'm still confused. Like, if this is all supposed to be within a week, like he was conducting La Boheme, rehearsing for this, and then he like leaves 2 days later. Like, what the fuck is going on? Operas take months, but it's just trying to, like, the show's just trying to run through some Puccini greatest hits. So, like, because La Boheme and Madame Butterfly are his two top tier most well known works. So anyway, this poor woman has a nervous breakdown and runs off the stage crying because her boss sucks. Yeah, saying some very unkind things in Italian. So then, and you see that the Joneses minus Dr. Jones, who's still in Rome, are up there watching the rehearsal. And so Puccini comes up there and asks Miss Seymour, like, what she thinks of unrequited love. And she very pointedly says, "It has its place in romantic novels and operas." Like, fiction, motherfucker.
Yeah,
you
fiction.
need to behave yourself. Those flowers, I'm on to you. And then Puccini...
And Henry's right there.
Yeah. And Puccini tells Henry... they have this talk about, like, if he likes music, and he's like, "Yeah, I had a piano teacher who sucked," and then he's like, "Yeah, I had a music teacher who sucked too. Like, kicked me if I ever hit a wrong note. But then my mother got me a great teacher, and then now here I am." So he's trying to suck up to Miss Seymour by saying, he literally says, like, "Having the right teacher will make makes all the difference." And it says, like, "Yes, Miss Seymour, see, I am good guy."
And she's like, "No, buddy, I'm onto you."
So then he's like, "Anna, why are you so quiet?" And she's like, "Madame Butterfly is such a sad story, and the music is haunting." So to score more points, he runs over to the score right off of his little stand, and he grabs a page and he signs it and gives it to Anna, so she will own a piece of Madame Butterfly.
Which is really sweet and really romantic and also really inappropriate, especially right in front of her kid. But okay, cool.
So that night, Mama Jones is tucking little Henry into bed. He's like looking at the piece of music, and he's like, "Oh, this looks weird," but she's trying
Chicken scratches.
She's explaining, the music, and he's like, how the notes follow each other. It's a language all by itself. It can make you feel things. And she starts to sing, a little bit of an aria from Madame Butterfly. Then we cut to a montage of lovely scenes of Puccini spending time with Anna and Henry, both together and separately. He's just he's clearly spending several days hanging out with the fam, and we get a bunch more of those breathtaking. Like, there's one point they're like looking out from a hillside over the Tuscan countryside at magic hour, and it's just like one of the most like gorgeous things you've ever seen.
But we only can see it through a weird grainy lens.
Yeah. And then we dissolves to just the breathtaking architecture of Florence. I say breathtaking a lot because it is breathtaking. And that's when Puccini makes his first move. He just slides he goes for the arm around the waist, maneuver on Anna, and she
rejects that shit
100%. I will give this woman credit because she puts up quite a resistance. Like, she does not send mixed signals. She literally says, "Please don't." And
of course, he does not don't.
This begins what I would call the Pepe Le Pew portion of the episode, where he does not take no for an answer. He's not leave this woman alone.
It's very cringy.
Doesn't think about what he's going to do to her family, even if, regardless of anything else. He is a selfish
Yeah, this
bastard.
guy's a piece of shit. And he explains, and he literally chases her down a flight of stairs and almost makes a scene.
Yep.
To the point where Henry noticed.
Yeah, and the whole time while he's chasing her, he's like, you brought life
you.
and art and music back to my soul. Like it would be a sin for them to ignore what God has brought together. Because of course, his horniness is his
You can't see me rolling my eyes, but
his
I'm rolling
horniness
my
is
eyes.
all because of God, you see. And she is clear. She's like, I am married. She is not on board with any of this. And
my kid's right there, dude.
so she tells everybody that she's not feeling well and they need to go home. And the next morning, you see Mrs. Jones not eating at breakfast. And she's disappointed that Dr. Jones did not respond to her recent letter and has not written them while he's gone. But she's like, oh, yeah, but I know he's really busy. But she's like, I really, really need my husband to...
I need affection right now, damn it.
Because I've got a horny Italian who I'm very massively attracted to. And he's like all getting under my skin with all this art and music and
He
beauty.
will not leave her alone. So she decides...
She's wearing me down, dude. Where's the letter? Come on, give me something.
And so, Mrs. Seymour tries to save her when she was like, lessons, Henry. And then she was like, no, let's spend some time.
Yep.
We're still hanging out. We're still a family.
Yep. So the three of them go sightseeing. They're like, because Anna already shut down. Because Henry's like, maybe we can go riding around in Mr.
And he
Puccini's
was like,
car. She's like,
nope.
no. And then that's when Miss Seymour's like, let's do lessons. And then Anna's like, no, how about we just go have a good time, just the three of us.
And so they do.
And they do. And so the family's doing tour shit. They visit the Basilica di Santa Croce, which I have been to. It is where many famous Italians find their. It's like one of the most honored places like a famous Italian can be, especially for like the arts. It is where Dante Alighieri's empty tomb resides. Like to this day, Florence is fighting the place where he died to get his body back, but they're like, no, you banished him. So fuck you. So he has an empty tomb with muses weeping over it in the basilica, along with I was at the tomb of Marconi, the inventor of the radio, is buried there, along with a bunch of famous I'm gonna bumble it. Don't have notes on that, but anyway, a bunch of famous Italians, including another opera composer like Rossini, is buried in the basilica. So they're in this beautiful place, checking out all the art and sculpture and tombs, and we see Puccini totally stalking Mrs. Jones.
Yeah, it got real weird real quick.
Yeah, I was worried that it was going to get like even darker because at first, like, she was not into it. Like,
yeah, she wasn't into it at all.
I mean, you saw the look in her eyes, like she was very moved, interested, but she was very clear. She had no intentions of doing anything, and he kept like at this point he's stalking her from the fucking shadows and trying to grab her.
Yeah, and she was like, "Nah, dude," the whole time.
Yeah, and then finally, that's when Henry starts seeing. He's like, "Oh, what's Mr. Puccini doing here? Why does Mom look so upset?" As they're having this argument. From there, Miss Seymour tries to drag Henry away, and that's when Henry stops being so cool with Mr. Puccini because he's like, "I don't know what's going on, but my mom is not happy. I don't like anybody making my mom cry."
Yeah, he's like, "My mom's having feelings, and they need to stop."
Like. Puccini's lucky he died in the 20s because if Indiana Jones had run into him later in the fucking 30s, he was just like, I think I owe you some Indiana Jones style ass kicking. So Anna tells the dude, he's like, you have to stop, and he just keeps pushing. And in typical dude fashion, it's still all about him. He's like, you make me alive, you bring me music, it's all about me.
Yeah, and she's
like, leave me alone. I mean, she says it very clear.
But
pushy dudes be pushy dudes.
Pushy dudes.
And Puccini tells her that he'll be waiting for her in the gardens that night. He names it, but I don't remember which garden it was. So we go to Henry getting a physics lesson where he's rubbing his hands together, which is just so suggestive and weird with the rest of this episode. And Anna's like, I'm going to go out for a walk. Yeah, that's the ticket.
I won't be gone long.
I'll be gone 10 minutes tops. See you soon. But just in case I'm not, put Henry to bed. And then, boom, she's right there and goes to Puccini. And we see them spend a magical evening together. We see them kissing. They go out and do all this stuff, and we see there's
Buying
some kissing and buying
flowers.
flowers and walking around. And
He
while
goes backstage to
Yeah.
Madame Butterfly.
now the episode makes it all look very chaste, but I don't believe that. I'm convinced these two people fucked. That was the whole reason she snuck out.
It's very possible. It's also possible she didn't. But it was
could
all
go either
very
way. Either way, she was certainly not behaving
into
herself.
it. Yeah.
She let herself go at this point. She's like, this woman, you clearly having been stuck for a decade with fucking Dr. Jones.
Yeah.
She wanted some romance.
Emotional, like, even if it's not straight up abuse, it's neglect.
A man who barely cracks a smile versus this expressive Italian who just tells her she's a goddess and that he is nothing without her. I mean, you can sort of you can sympathize with poor Anna here.
Yeah.
And when you know she's gonna be dead in a few years, I'm like, I hope she got railed by that swarthy Italian.
Poor little Henry.
So she comes back later that night, long after Henry goes to bed.
And then is busted by Miss
Miss
Seymour.
Seymour's waiting up for her.
Oh, you went out a long time, did you?
And so Miss Seymour tries to be a little coy, but is trying to guide this younger woman who's clearly having a rough time. She's like, Florence is, a romantic and beautiful city, but we will be leaving with the family soon, right, Mrs. Jones?
And she was like, of course.
Yeah, definitely. So the next day, Miss Seymour and Henry have gone off to Galileo's telescope because we're still on the Galileo bits.
We're in the museum for science.
And Anna is supposedly off shopping, air quotes.
Yeah, shopping. And then he goes and he looks through the telescope, and what does he find?
He sees his mom and Puccini
having some tea or whatever.
Having some tea, and at one point sharing a rather intimate embrace. I don't think they kiss where he can see, but he sees them like hugging in a way that's very clearly not cool.
And little Henry has a fucking fit at this point.
He's like,
he storms out of the museum.
He's like, one day I'm going to be able to kick the shit out of people like this. But right now I'm 9. Fuck.
So he impotently just storms off. Fucking, yeah.
And so then where we see...
this is where the sympathy for little Henry Jones at this point comes in, because you can just see the fucking rage.
Yeah, he is not cool with this. And then later he's going to literally have his heart broken for at least an hour. So at the cafe, you see Puccini and Anna there. And finally he's like, for some reason, he has to leave for Milan. They have to leave.
That's a different movie.
Very different movie. They have to leave for Milan that night. And he's like, and asks Anna to come with him. And yes, he wants this woman to abandon her husband and 9-year-old son to fuck off with a guy she met a few days ago.
Because he loves her.
He goes, I love you. I don't want to live without you. With you by my side, I can create again. Don't break my heart. And she's like, this is moving too fast. And then
wait.
She's like, excuse me. And she just takes off, like crying.
I mean, infidelity was one thing, but completely fucking abandoning her family is a totally different thing.
She's like, I thought this was
supposed to be fun.
An eat, fuck, love situation.
Yeah.
And then I go back to my family, not literally me just suddenly changing my life and whole thing. Yeah. And so he insists, but he has total faith in the work that he is a romantic through and through. So that night, Henry gives his mother a dose of guilt where he's like, were you shopping? She's like, yeah, I bought a scarf. And he's like, yeah, I saw you with Mr. Puccini. Funny about that.
She was like, oh, I ran into him.
Yeah.
Funny.
Funny coincidence that. And then it's followed up by a scene with Miss Seymour really showing off that she actually is a very empathetic and kind person deep down beneath her British prissiness, because she could and honestly is in a position to very harshly judge and come down on Anna.
Yeah, especially because that's, Dr. Jones is her boy.
It's her boy and her boss.
Yeah.
But at this point, she feels like she's part of this family, and she
knows what a stiff dick he is.
You can tell she has a lot of empathy, and so Anna but she just kind of patiently reminds her of her responsibilities and her reactions. And Anna's all flustered and doesn't know how to feel. And so she just confides everything and says, yeah, he's asked me to run away with him. And little Henry is eavesdropping the whole time and now finds out his mother is at least considering ditching him forever
to be with this other dude.
To be with this opera composer.
Can you imagine? It's like his mother, his one solace. The one fucking person who like loves him and pays attention to him.
Yep. And so there's this moment where he thinks, "Oh shit, my mom's
gonna
to
leave
fucking
me."
bail." And so you see him, and he does not want anyone to know he found this out. So he runs back into bed and throws the covers over his head and is probably sobbing his little Henry eyes out. I just don't know that Corey Carrier could have really carried that. So they just went with the covers over the head, which is probably a wise choice.
And that's fine, because I mean, you really feel like he was. I mean, of all of the acting in this, he gave it all.
Yeah, and this was his last full episode. So this was after he'd warmed up with the character quite a bit before he shot this. So anyway, we cut to the train station. So we're past this sweeping shot of a big steam locomotive, and you see the Firenze sign, which is the Italian name for Florence. And you see Anna Jones standing there in her full dress, the steam washing over her, and you see Puccini.
She's walking briskly.
She's walking, and Puccini calls out to her, holding flowers in his hands, "Anna, Anna!"
And she walks right past him, doesn't even give him a look.
Well, she does for a second. She kind of turns halfway, and then that's the moment where Dr. Jones steps off the train.
And she throws herself into his arms.
He's like, "Oh, Anna, what a nice surprise."
And she kisses him and says how much she missed him.
Yep. And she's like,
she can't wait to get home to bang him.
She's like, "Let's always be together. Please don't leave me alone. You have no idea how horny I am."
Apparently, he really, really loves this woman too, because he was just like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, yeah, but he was just sort of pleasantly surprised. Yeah. "Oh, that's very nice. My wife met me at a train station. That's very kind of her, yes."
Mm-hmm. And he's going to go home and...
Yes, I don't have to beat her until next week.
Gonna go home and yeah, take care of that.
Yeah. So they kiss, and you see the legendary Italian opera composer heartbreaks as he turns and goes to his train to go off to Milan.
And then they show the abandoned flowers on the train station.
So the voiceover from Old Indy tells us that things can get off track, but can return back to their original course. As both of Henry's little parents visited him in bed, so you see him waking up to both of his parents. You realize, "Oh, cool, my mom didn't abandon me.
Hooray!
My family's still together. Hooray!
Everything's fine now. We're just gonna..." And then they were like, "We're gonna go to France." And he was like, "Sweet."
So then we dissolve back to the bar in the 1990s, where the biker mama has absolute just tears streaking down her face from the beautiful story that this old fossil told her while he's been kicking her ass at a game of 9-ball.
Yep.
And she asks, did she ever see him again? Meaning, did Anna ever see Puccini again?
And the answer was, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. But especially considering we know that this woman died between ages like 11 and 16.
Yeah.
But he did write an opera, La Fuciglia del West, or it was like the golden woman of the West, or the golden girl of the West, was the title. It was a love triangle story set in the California Gold Rush. And according to Old Indy, which an American woman of the Old West gives up her home and friends for the man she loves.
Yeah, he had to write that. It's fiction,
he had to write the fictional version of whatever, because Puccini was forever carrying the torch for Mrs. Anna Jones. And then at that exact moment, old Indy fucks up and scratches the ball. And then he just looks up and goes, "Your shot, Mimi." The end. That was the baffling place we end.
Yeah, and it's like he didn't even win.
I think I understand what they're going for, because I'm a nerd and I get to show off my English degree, but we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But that's the episode.
That was the cringy fucking weird ass episode.
What are your thoughts on it as a story itself before we move on?
The story itself was fucking really weird and really terrible and really cringy.
No, I didn't look up the dates. I am convinced that whoever wrote this episode was heavily inspired by the movie The Bridges of Madison County, starring Meryl Streep and Clint Eastwood, because that was a story.
That's the whole plot.
A married woman married to to a stiff, I know, like a nice enough guy, but just boring and not romantic. And Clint Eastwood played a photographer who came into town to take these pictures of the bridges, the covered bridges. And he and Meryl Streep have this love affair. But in the end, she chooses her husband and her family over running away.
Yeah, because
so
she was like, I'm an adult.
So this feels like they were trying to do kind of an homage to that story, but this time set with a historical figure,
and it fell flat
and
as
trying
shit.
to turn Indy's mom into like this romantic, tragic heroine or whatever. I don't know. I thought
no, it was weird. It didn't land with me well.
Honestly, like I thought the guy who played Puccini was great. Like his performance was fine.
I thought all the performances were fine. Even Young Indy, his
fine.
Performance was fine. Everything, it was fine.
They
the
did
writing
all right.
was
Yeah,
just
the
bad.
writing was not great. But I like that was, what they were going for. All right, so now we're ready to move on to our next segment.
That belongs in a museum.
This is where we go over the historical figures, lessons, and artifacts featured in this episode. And even though there aren't any historical artifacts, it was a shitload of art and sculpture and
so
architecture.
Much art. I did love when they showed Indy staring at the statue of David, and they only showed his face.
Yeah.
They showed him literally staring up, and then it was like the face shot,
concerning
which
in
is
the real
hilarious.
world, because
the real world, I can't believe that they're
a teacher was fired for
showing the statue of David,
one of the most famous, priceless, and incredible works of art ever created by man.
Which again, and then it turned into another Simpsons episode. It's
no,
really bad.
It was a joke when the Simpsons did it. And it's like, here we are in real life, and so that is funny. But they, as you can see, young Indiana Jones, they didn't protect his little 9-year-old eyes. He saw all the titties, and he saw David's weenus, and it was fine.
We didn't get to see it on TV though.
No, but we did see the titties, because marble titties are fine on television.
Yep. Well, and it was a hand covering the titty.
No, but when you could see some statues with breasts in there. It was fine.
It was
so
fine.
anyway,
but,
but that
they did not show.
But there was no. We're definitely not in a. There's not a piece of treasure this episode. The treasure was Anna Jones's heart. Now, one thing featured, like the music we started with and was La Boheme, one of Puccini's most famous operas. And if you are a modern fan of musicals, you might have seen Rent, which is just a modern reinterpretation of La Boheme. And honestly, kind of how I thought the weird way it ended, just like kind of in the middle of him just like, "You're shot, Mimi." Well, Mimi was a character both in La Boheme and in Rent.
Okay.
She was the chick who died at the end of La Boheme, but did not die at the end of Rent.
Okay.
And also La Boheme, sort of famously a story that doesn't really have a plot. It just kind of follows these young people who live in an apartment, and just shit happens, but there's no real like even though it has a death at the end, but the death wasn't a tragedy because it wasn't because of anything they did. It was just life. And so it was like, it just sort of like it just sort of
happens,
because that was part of Puccini's, one of his like things he brought to opera was the realism style, the idea that we're going to try to just recreate life and then portray it to music, but try to get to real life. So La Boheme was supposed to be the example of, this is just some shit that happened to some young people and then one of them died. That character was Mimi, and they made the biker mama chick Mimi. So I think that was kind of a thing they were going for, and kind of a nod to how La Boheme just sort of ends. The episode just sort of ends.
So I guess it's like they were trying to tie this all together.
But that's going to fly over the audience's head a lot. They did not set that up properly.
Yeah, no.
Like the only reason I could come up with that is because I literally
I
was researching it and thinking about it. What the fuck? So in the episode, we see Puccini personally conducting the performance of La Boheme, which actually very rarely would you see the composer actually conducting. Like they did that a lot for things like Amadeus and Immortal Beloved, where they always want to show the composers conducting. But most of the time,
they're not the composer.
They had a professional conductor would deal with that, and they're just, hell, they're not even at every performance because they're the dudes who racked it up. But of course, that's typical dramatic license to see him personally doing every single fucking job, even though he would have been leading a large team of people just to handle the stage directions and handling the act. Like him doing everything is, that's not how it really works. But whatever. It's fine. One interesting little piece of apocrypha was that the U.S. copyright for "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" had only just been registered in May 2nd, 1908. It was a brand new song. Literally, it was supposed to have just happened in America. So the Joneses would have already left America before they would have even heard this song, much less Puccini. The first performance was by a chick named Nora Bayes in 1908. And yeah, it was after June 15th. So it was like them saying it was total bullshit. The song basically didn't exist, and Puccini definitely wouldn't have known it at this point, and neither would the family. So that is cute.
It's cute, but
couldn't have happened. Historical inaccuracies. Oh yeah, then like I already said, Anna tells Miss Seymour the family's going to go on to Paris because originally the next episode was supposed to be Paris, September 1908. But it was originally supposed to be in July. So now we're going to be going somewhere else before we go to Paris.
okay. Do we ever make it to Paris?
Yes, we will be going to Paris.
Okay, we'll go to Paris, but not yet.
But not yet, because once again, they didn't get
Well,
things
and I
in-
guess
in
the
order.
way they're trying to, this is old Indy, and he's telling the story of his life.
Yeah, and probably
kind of
getting all
in
the details
parts.
wrong. And that's
Yeah.
if this is the real Indiana Jones and not just some lunatic.
I'm convinced it might be a lunatic. Just making up some shit as he goes along.
Yeah, he doesn't look or sound anything like
No.
He's a guy who's...
This is like if Mad Eye Moody came out into the fucking real world, was like undercover trying to look for fucking...
right.
for dark wizards and bars and museums and shit.
So La Fanciulla del West, the Girl of the Golden West, was indeed a 3-act opera. Probably one of the last bigger hits of Puccini. He had kind of a career decline that lasted for a while after this point, and actually premiered in New York City. But yeah, it's this love story that literally has a happy couple riding off into the sunrise on a real horse on stage at the end of the opera.
Nice.
There's some interesting little tidbits. I don't have notes for them, but I'll try to remember about Puccini himself. One thing, some of the stories about him that he told in this episode did line up. He was from Lucca. He and his brother did walk to Pisa to see their first opera, and that was what really inspired him to actually want to compose opera. Or actually, it was his friend, not his brother. But what they didn't talk about was how Puccini was from this like musical dynasty in the town of Lucca, where like his grandfather and father had both held this musical position at the local church. Like they had this like very specific job that was like, it had become hereditary at this point. And everybody just assumed, like his dad died when he was 5, but they assumed he was just going to slide into that role. And that's why his mom was like invested in his musical training, but he did not want that job. He kind of resisted it and kind of bounced back and forth. But then when he got inspired to do opera, that's when he like went all in on the music thing and did all that. He did have an estranged, very bad marriage, gone back and forth. It included a bunch of public humiliation because Puccini was a horny, constantly cheating bastard.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess that's on track, although Indy's saintly mother.
Yeah, so there was one story that actually if this was real, it would have taken place not like only the next year. But apparently, at one point when Puccini had gone home for a while, his wife became convinced that he'd been having an affair with a very young maid in the house. And so this woman was like harassing this teenage girl and publicly humiliating her and threatening her and like caused all this problems. And this girl killed herself.
Oh, yikes.
And then they did a medical exam that where they, in their opinion, she was a virgin. So this woman harassed this teenager to death.
For nothing.
Well, just because her husband cheated on so many times and driven her crazy. I mean, not to excuse anybody's behavior in this. The teenage girl is the true victim here. But it's like, God damn. So yeah, he wasn't great. And
they portrayed that he is not great.
Yeah.
Because he was fucking harassing.
Well, that's the thing,
he
though.
was cringy.
But I think it wanted us to be like, to get into the romance side.
But
it didn't really work for me.
It didn't work for me either. I did not. She was still way too buttoned up to be. It did not portray It really did. The whole romance thing fell very flat. It was almost sadly flat.
It was really hard to get it. It was very forced, but whatever. Once again, I was just trying to cram some history into us, and so now we have Puccini. And it was an excuse for them to go to Florence and Pisa and shoot in all these beautiful places, and hope they had fun.
They probably did.
So now we're going to move on to the next section.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
In this segment, we look at the development of Dr. Henry Jones Jr. As he develops into the man he will one day become.
I guess he learns that relationships are complicated.
I mean,
That
so
no
it's like
one's perfect.
he spent God knows how long telling some bikers in a bar about how he learned about physics.
About the time his mom fucking decided to cheat on his dad. Infidelity, it's sometimes good for a marriage.
Yeah, I was like, it was a weird story to tell
It was-
total strangers.
It was a weird story in general.
That I think is his specific mental illness, is that he can't just not vomit out all these stories as he goes along. But so we know that at this point he learns some science shit. And he learns a little bit about the complications of relationships, but his mother pulled through for him and became once again
And his saintly mother
stayed his perfect woman for the rest of his life. I mean, other than that, we see him, running up and down the stairs, once again showing that he is just the most fucking hyperactive ball of energy, but who is also tortured by having to do having to do high school and college level like lessons all the time from this mean old biddy.
Yeah, and he's just a kid.
Yeah. But like you
Wanting
said,
to do kid
there's
shit.
just not a lot of actual Indiana Jones stuff in this episode because this wasn't an Indiana Jones episode. This was a Anna Jones episode.
And it was weird, and I really didn't enjoy it. Granted, I haven't really enjoyed any of them.
But he didn't
The
say...
closest one, I guess, was Egypt has to be the superior episode so far, where at least the writing didn't completely suck ass.
Yeah, we will have to see as we go along how some of that improves. Oh, we did. Okay, yeah, we did note that as far as updating his character sheet, we already know he's fluent in Arabic, and now he took Italian 101.
He can speak some Italian now.
Yep.
Yep.
And there was one point at the beginning of the episode where a pretty young girl in a dress drops a handkerchief, and he's like, "Scusi," and he picks it up and gives it to her, which is like a foreshadowing some of his like ridiculous bullshit he does later on as a dashing young hero.
Well, and maybe later on this could have the possibility that Puccini was like, well, you shouldn't go after married women, but it's like, but maybe not being so stiff can get you a girl or two sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, Indiana Jones does better at getting girls than some other people. He just doesn't tend to hold on to them for very long.
No, well, he doesn't seem to want to.
Yeah, and I think there's, like I said, he has mommy and daddy issues that interfere with his relationships with people.
Yeah.
So
I guess this is the first time we get to really experience how he had mommy issues.
Yep. We say, like, that was that time my mom almost abandoned me, but then she didn't.
Yep.
And then she died.
And then she died, abandoning me with this fucking horrible monster forever.
Oy. But yeah, I guess that's basically going to be it for Henry this week.
Yeah, it was weird. It was cringy. Didn't like it. But here we are.
And now...
and the cinematography, once again, was absolutely spectacular.
And the music was beautiful because it pulled in it pulled in opera, and like I said, they worked in Puccini into the just regular score for the episode to kind of drench all that time that Anna and him were spending together in his music, because she's very clearly in love with his music, and at first, and that's why the first chink in her armor he was able to worm his way in.
Well, I guess would the treasure have been the piece of music that he autographed?
That would
for
be
her?
I guess that would be a thing if Indiana ends up with his mom's sheet music that's tucked in his journal one day, or if that's one of it. It would be a nice, valuable thing to have, because Puccini was the most commercially successful opera composer of all time, at least to the point of his death. And they said, like, in modern dollars, he had about $200 million worth of amassed wealth as a composer, and you compare that to like Mozart a while back before who died in a fucking and get dumped in a mass grave. We don't know to this day exactly where his bones are at.
Yeah, it's sad.
So
And this
yeah.
guy was a dick.
So my only last guess would be that from this point forward, if Indiana Jones, like, if somebody starts playing Puccini around him, he just like breaks the phonograph or the record player, punches the person singing it. Fuck that guy.
Maybe. I don't know. Old Indy is weird.
I'll say he's singing, yeah. Well, I think that just about does it for us today. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. We will have more of the adventures of Dr. Henry Jones for you next time, and the Value of series, regular episodes of Chainsaw History coming to you soon. Plug in my own stuff. If you are into Dungeons and Dragons, you should go check out the content I'm putting up on my newsletter called backstab.fun, where I just put up random stuff. Like recently I put up rules for if your party adopts a puppy in your Dungeons and Dragons adventuring party and how you might handle that situation. And that's it.
Okay. Well, we'd also like to thank our sound engineer, Kevin.
We are super grateful to be hosted here at Raven Sound Studios. So we
Always.
will catch you next time.
Bye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes?
someone seems to have sent you all the flowers in Florence.
Oh, my. Well, who could have sent them?
The card.
Oh, my. They are from Signor Puccini for all of us.
How very Italian.